Too many times I've been in gyms pretty well all of my life, back to when I first started actually working and training in a gym back in the early 90s. And I would see people doing all kinds of exercises. And as I would say, on different machines, they would do all kinds of gymnastics on the machine, moving all different ways. And I also always wondered, do they know actually what they're working, what that machine does? In other words, do they understand the muscle? Well, this is part of our series on learning your different muscles. And today, we're starting with the largest muscle in the upper body, known as the back muscle, the big back muscle known as your lats or your latissimus dorsi. Today on the Personal Edge Fitness Show.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Your lats in you. The lats are the largest muscle in the upper body, very important muscle. And I'm probably going to say that about every single muscle that I talk about. I can't find one that's just like an appendix. We don't need it or something. But the lat is a rather large muscle in the body. There's several different ways of working it out. There's several different ways of making it grow. There are several functions that it has. And I'm going to basically go through all of this with you today and let you learn all there is to know about, well, a lot that there is to know, and what you really need to know about the latissimus dorsi. Now, the name comes from, it's Latin, it comes from latissimi, meaning broadest, and dorum, meaning back. It is the large, flat muscle on the back that stretches to the sides behind the arm and is partly covered by the trapezius. Now, let me break that down for you a little bit. If you take your fingers and you put your fingers right on the base of your skull. Now, you're still on your neck. You're at the top of your neck, right with your base of your skull. And you'll feel, if you push down, you're going to feel some muscle there. You're going to feel, it's actually a strand of muscle that comes all the way up and attaches to the base of your skull. Well, that muscle actually fans out, goes down, and it produces that triangular part at the top of your shoulder. Well, that's your trapezius. And believe it or not, that trapezius actually stretches down to the middle of your part of your back and actually goes across the back of your shoulders. Underneath that muscle, and that's what it's saying, the latissimus dorsi, that the lats actually connect up underneath that muscle, up towards the shoulders where they connect. But to really recognize the lats, it's very simple. I say there, it's basically two sides of the lats, one big muscle, your right and your left lat. It's that muscle that makes it look like you have wings. It makes that V shape to your upper body. And if you actually take your right hand, reach over and grab your left shoulder, take your left hand and grab underneath your arm. You can actually grab, especially if you have a decently developed lat, you can feel part of a muscle poking out. You can easily grab it like a handle. And that's actually your lats. It's a very, very, very large muscle, and that's where it's located, and it causes that triangular effect in the body. It's partly covered by the trapezius, so that's where it connects at the top, and it connects to the spine, and it typically connects between 4 and 5 vertebrae, and it stretches down to the crest of the hip bone, right at the top of what they call the ilium. So it runs pretty much your full back. I mean, all the way up to the shoulder, goes all the way down on both sides. And if you're looking at a human body, an anatomical mat of muscle, you'll see these fan-shaped muscles on the back, and you can't miss them. They're the largest muscle upper body. It's the largest muscle definitely in the back, and it has kind of a V type of shape. And there's two different lats. So, of course, one on each side, your left lat and your right lat. So, well, what does it do? It's primary mover. I can run through these words, and then I can explain it to you. Extension, adduction, transverse extension, horizontal abduction, flexion, and extended position, and medial internal rotation of the shoulder joint. Is that clear? Let me tell you its prime move. Pulling things. Basically pulling things. Especially if you've got something over your head and you're pulling. Anytime you're taking your elbow, if you're putting your hands up, like you've got somebody pointing a gun at you and your hands are up, if you pull your elbows down straight to your sides, not in front of you, put them straight to your side, that is the action of the latissimus dorsi. That's what the lats do. And to really engage them, you can place your elbow on a counter or something up high. If you can place your elbow, and if you're sitting down, you can place your elbow on a table or counter where your arm is 90 degrees to your side, and you push your elbow down hard, you'll feel that lat. You'll feel that muscle tense up under your arm. But that's what it does. There's several different things it does as far as rotating the body slightly and what have you, but its main function is pulling. Its main function is drawing that elbow into the body. That's what we call your primary mover, its main function. But your secondary mover, it works with other back muscles in a what we call a synergistic roll, all of them working together, an extension and lateral flexion of the lumbar spine. In other words, basically bending your back sideways. So if you were to put your arms up over your head and you drop your hands all the way over to one side, in other words, you tilt your entire body over like you're trying to make your body into a C shape. The lat's involved with that flexion of the spine. It's not its main mover. Obliques are involved in that quite a bit. You've got rhomboids involved in that action, a little bit of trapezius, but it's a secondary mover of the latissimus dorsi. And I keep saying the characteristics of it, that it is the largest muscle in the upper body. And it does give that V shape to the upper body because it attaches directly to the spine, which allows it to act as a large stabilizing muscle for the spine. And when trained correctly, it can actually lift the entire body. That's how strong it is. And so it's very important to keep this muscle strong, especially if you're doing any kind of chest work. Whenever I'm talking about different muscles, I list also the opposing muscles. It's very important to know that. The reason I bring up opposing muscles is the fact that that is why we end up pulling a muscle. Typically, we end up pulling a muscle because we have an imbalance. We have an imbalance. The quadricep is overworked and is not in a good ratio as far as strength is concerned with the hamstring. And so if you were to sprint or kick your leg out forward really fast and dig in, you can actually fire that quadricep, kick your foot out, and you can pull your hamstring. Well, you can do that same thing to your back when you're working a lot of chest and you don't work the latissimus dorsi and the rhomboids and the back muscles. So I see this a lot with guys. I saw this a lot early on in my career with guys that really wanted to work bench press a lot. They wanted to work chest. I've still got some of my clients today that they don't like to do back work. They love to do chest work. But we have to make sure we're doing plenty of back work just to make sure that keeps in balance. That's where you end up with pain. That's where you end up with bad posture. That's where you end up with joint trouble. And it can be progressive things. It can be a lower back problem, but the problem was started in a upper back weakness. You can have all kinds of problems that way. So it's good to keep those opposing muscles balanced. And the opposing muscles of the latissimus dorsi are, as I said earlier, the pectoral group, and that is your chest, your pecs. The deltoid group, especially the front deltoids, they are an opposing muscle to the lats because they actually push the arm away from the body and pull it in towards the center line, towards the front, as opposed to pulling your shoulders back towards the midline of the back. And the front deltoid does that. So, and believe it or not, the trapezius, because your serratus and your lats are involved in a synergistic relationship to draw your shoulder blades down. And that's actually a good thing. Believe it or not, drawing your shoulder blades down more than pulling them back, as the serratus does, is actually how you maintain good posture. So many people want to pull their shoulders back. Well, when you pull your shoulders back, you're firing the trapezius, you're firing the deltoids, you're firing a little bit of the lats, but you're not firing the serratus, which one of its main jobs is to hold posture. And so it pulls down. The lats are actually involved in that with the serratus, pulling those shoulders down against the trapezius. That's where it's kind of funny. The trapezius works in conjunction with the lats, and at times the trapezius actually works opposing the lats. It's pretty interesting. It's mainly because the lats are such a large muscle. Well, what do we do with this muscle? What does it do? I mean, we may know that. Of course, a lat pull down, you will use it for using that machine. But what does it do? Well, one of the things it can do, it can literally pull us up. And my favorite lat exercise, which I try to get every one of my clients to do, because I think it's a fantastic measurement of overall fitness. It is the hardest, and I feel the best single motion bodyweight exercise is a pull-up. And there's so many people that's very, 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 very difficult exercise to do, but that is one of the best ways to fire that lat. And one of the hardest reasons pull-ups are so hard is because there's so many little muscles that you have to get through, the biceps, the forearm, and even the little bit of the deltoids, in order to use that lat. We use it in swimming. Most swimmers have that big V shape. They have very powerful lats. I'm working with a swimmer right now. We are really focusing on lats. 14-year-old girl, about to be 15, and she actually does fantastic pull-ups. I'm very impressed with it. I think she's a little impressed with it herself, as she should be. And it's one thing we work a lot. We actually did some the other day with a weight vest on because we're trying to develop those lats. So swimming, pull-ups, any kind of rowing motion, working a row machine or any kind of pulling thing. When you go to open a door and pull the door open, you're actually firing your lats in conjunction with your rhomboids. Pull downs, bent over rows, single arm bent over rows. We call them lawnmowers. When you've got one knee up on a bench and you've got your hand on the bench and you've got a dumbbell in your hand, you're pushing your elbow backwards by your side, that is actually firing your lats. So deadlifts, something that I use quite a bit with my home clients and when I'm doing online sessions, for those clients that don't have any equipment, One of the best ways, in fact, I feel it's the best way to fire the lats, if you have no equipment whatsoever, is to lie down on your back and do what I call elbow presses. Laying down on your back, just like you're going to do a sit-up. Legs straight out, or if you want to make it easier, you can bend your knees, and actually pushing your elbows down hard into the floor. If you push hard enough, you actually will raise your shoulders up, not your stomach, but you'll actually raise your shoulders up off the floor. And that's a way to fire that lat. So I have that in here in exercises to strengthen besides swimming, pull-ups, rows, pullovers, pull-downs, bent-over rows, T-bar rows, deadlift, floor, elbow presses. And there's another one that I like to point out because a lot of people don't understand the engagement of the lats in this exercise or being able to engage the lats in this particular way. But if you're a fan of Pilates, they have an exercise they routinely call the hundreds. And a lot of times they'll use that early on in an exercise just as a warm-up. But it's basically a situation where you're lying down flat and you pull your shoulders away from your ears, pushing your elbows and your shoulders down, and you actually come up in a slight V-sit or hollow out, as we say in the resistance training world, with your legs off the floor, upper body off the floor. You're sitting up as tall as you possibly can with this relationship to the head, neck, and shoulders. Everything is stretched up as high as it can, and you're actually doing what I call a flutter with your arms. You're supposed to do it 100 times. That's called the hundreds. You're actually engaging the lats when you're doing that. It's helping stabilize the back. And if you've ever felt like you're doing abs and you're having a tough time and you start to push your shoulder blades down, what's happening is you're actually using the lats to help support your upper body during abdominal work. These last two, we know about the swimming, pull-ups, rows. I'm sure you were familiar with that, but this motion of using the back or the lat muscles as a stabilizing muscle for the back is incredibly important and very beneficial to understand that. And you can fire it through the hundreds. You can fire it through the elbow press down. Another way to do it, to fire that muscle and really use it as a stabilizing muscle. And believe it or not, with no equipment at home, it makes a tremendous difference in your lats. It's to do hyperextensions, laying on your stomach on the floor and having your arms down by your sides. They can also be over your head, just depending on what particular back extension you're doing. And you actually fire that lower back. You pull your chest up off the floor. If you're doing a true, what we call Superman, you're bringing your legs up off the floor too. And you're causing your body to create this arch with your belly on the floor and your body kind of arched up. Well, when you're doing that exercise, if you'll start it off on the floor flat, first thing you do, bring your shoulders up to your ears and then push your shoulders down as you pull your chest up off the floor and hold that position. Believe it or not, a fantastic, anyone can do it, lat exercise. And no matter your fitness level, you do that with good, strong repetitions. You do it very deliberate. You will feel it. I don't care how strong your lats are. You will feel it. You'll make it sore. You'll actually grow that back by doing that exercise. So don't pass up those simple body weight exercises. They do make a big difference. And in those body weight exercises, the floor elbow presses, the Pilates 100s, and those hyperextensions, you're not going through the bicep and the forearm in order to get to the lats. Now, this is a common problem with large muscle groups. With large muscle groups, if you can't get directly to that muscle, you have to go through some smaller muscle groups to get there. Many times you will never fully exercise that muscle because the helper muscles, the secondary movers in that exercise are wearing out. And this is extremely common with what I was telling you, my favorite bodyweight exercise, the pull-ups. Most people mentally cannot do a pull-up, but actually physically they could. I tell clients this all the time. If I could just take your conscious out of there, if I knew how to hypnotize you, I could get you to do a pull-up or these pull-ups or more pull-ups. Because first thing, you've got to ignore the pain and also the discomfort caused by forearm fatigue and bicep fatigue, two very small muscles that will wear out well before you get to those lats, well before you get to that large muscle. And I bring that up because many people get frustrated about working lats because they can't feel them. They work them out and they won't feel anything the next day. You know, you're looking for that soreness. You're looking for that broken down muscle tissue that's trying to grow and you feel nothing. Well, the reason being is that your smaller muscle groups failed prior to ever hitting that large muscle. Another part of that, though, is knowing how to fully engage that muscle. Now, this is the thing that goes back to when I was watching people in gyms in the early part of my career and watching them work out and almost laughing at times of the gymnastics they were doing. And when I say that, if you watch pretty much any random gym and you watch individuals work out on the lat pull down, I find that interesting. I absolutely love that machine. It's a fantastic machine. But you'll see all kinds of swinging and body movements and leaning backwards real fast to pull down a heavy weight and then letting the weight just fly up. What I think is going on there is that if somebody's doing that bad a form, they really don't know how to engage the muscle. They know how to pull down a bar, but they don't know how to engage the muscle. So in that particular case, and not only that case, but on pretty much every exercise that we teach here, we actually explain what is the muscle doing? How do you feel that muscle? How do you actually engage that muscle? How can I use this lat pull-down machine as a tool to effectively work that muscle? And the way you need to do that is knowing how to engage it. Now, I'll tell you how to engage the lat. Forget about the hand. Forget about the biceps. Forget about the forearms. In fact, completely forget about pulling. Even though I told you earlier that's what it does. It actually pulls the arms backwards. Yes, it does. Forget about pulling. Just put that out of your mind. Don't think about pulling, because when you think about pulling, you're going to concentrate on your fingers. You're going to concentrate on your biceps. And a lot of times you're going to create a concave chest. You're going to roll your shoulders forward and your body's going to curl down or concave, mainly because your core, your abs, your biceps, and your forearms are trying to do all that work. In fact, if you pull yourself into that crunch-like position, shoulders rolled forward, you really can't fully engage the latissimus dorsi. And I see this quite often on back machines, which is where I notice where an exerciser does not understand how to fire that muscle. In order to fully contract the back, the first thing you need to do is put your back into an arched back position. Now think about this. When I was talking about the hundreds a minute ago, even though you're sitting up and you're in a V shape or whatever, you're still in an arched back position because you're pulling your shoulder blades down and your neck tall. And that's going to create an arched back position. When you're doing hyperextensions, when the muscle is firing is when you're in that arched back position. When you're at the top, you're pushing those arms down. So when you're doing a row machine, as in a weighted weight machine or even a row exerciser, you want to keep that back arched. Now you can bend at the waist all day long. It's just like the way we teach a squat. When I say arch, a rounded back is when you're humped over, like when you're on the floor and you're like a downward facing dog position almost, or down like a dog on your hands and knees, and you pull your stomach in and you round your back really, really tall like an elephant. That is a rounded back. When you push your belly down and pull your shoulder blades back and cause a hollow point in the middle of your back, that is an arched back. So an arched back position, usually 99.9% of the time, your head is going to be up. It's going to be looking up or looking straight forward. It is not going to be looking down. It's not impossible to do that, but it's very difficult to arch your back and keep your head looking down at the same time. You're naturally going to pull your head up. So when you're on a lat machine or on a rhomboid machine, I usually tell everybody, look at the pulley. Keep your head up. Because your body follows your head follows your eyes. If you look down, your head drops down, therefore your body drops down. You want to put that back in an arch back position, chest up, hollow back. And I said forget about pulling. You want to concentrate on pushing your elbows down. That's what the latissimus dorsi does. If you're standing there and you've got your hands up, like your hands up because somebody's pointing a gun at you, and you have somebody come up and put their hand underneath your elbow, and they try to hold your elbow there, and you push down against that hand, you're going to feel that lat fire. And you really want to do that. You really want to push on a desk somewhere or get somebody to push on your elbow as you're trying to push your elbow down, because you want to feel that muscle fire. It's no different than flexing that bicep. If you can feel the muscle fire, then you know how to engage the muscle. Therefore, you can effectively work the muscle. No matter how much weight you can pull down, how much weight that you can make move up and down on a lat pull down machine, until you're really engaging that muscle, you're not growing it. And so understanding engagement on any muscle is extremely important. And that's how you engage that latissimus dorsi, pushing your elbow down. The dangers and risk involved with latissimus dorsi, especially weak ones. Well, tight latissimus dorsi have been shown to be a contributor to chronic shoulder pain and chronic back pain. Now, the reason a muscle is going to be tight is it's inflexible. Therefore, it's weak. A strong muscle is a flexible muscle. The third most flexible athlete behind a gymnast and a dancer is a power lifter. So the stronger the muscle is, the more flexible it's going to be. If it's tight, if it's weak, then it's actually going to cause bad posture. It's actually going to cause your shoulders to roll forward. And you'll end up with chronic because you're causing a stretched situation, a tension or tight situation in the back. And you get kind of a concave look. You're going to have chronic back pain and chronic shoulder pain because of that. But working that muscle, working on pushing those elbows backwards, you're going to strengthen that muscle. You're going to cause that pain to go away. Injuries in this particular muscle are rare. They're pretty rare, mainly because it's such a big muscle. You can cause an injury to it. You see injury in some baseball pitchers. Some baseball pitchers experience pulls generally to the stronger pectoralis muscle engaging force on the lats and the follow-through of a throw. If you're throwing really, really, really hard, you're bringing that arm forward and actually across the body, and that is firing the chest muscle. In that certain position, the latissimus dorsi is exposed, but it's completely relaxed. But it may have a muscle pulling on it like the pectoralis major, and it's actually pulling on a weak muscle. You can pull it. It is possible. And it's very painful when you've got a sore lat. You get a big muscle like that and you get a pull in it. Boy, it's something you notice quite a bit. But it is rare. Because it's such a big muscle, it's very, very rare. And I like to leave this under the section of, I bet you didn't know. Now, I hope I've told you some information about the latissimus dorsi, especially about engaging the muscle in order to work it correctly and how important the muscle is. But something I like to leave in, like I say, about the I bet you did not know section is for heart patients with low cardiac output who are not candidates for cardiac transplantation. In other words, they're not candidates for a heart transplant. A procedure known as cardiomyoplasty may support the failing heart. Now, this procedure, it involves wrapping muscle around the heart and then electro-stimulating them and synchronizing it with the what they call ventricular systole. In other words, they want to have it working in concert with that ventricular pump. Well, the muscle of the heart is extremely strong. So wrapping a muscle around it, you need something kind of strong. Well, the muscle used, and I bet you didn't know, is the latissimus dorsi muscle. And think about it. It's a strong muscle. It's a big muscle. And also, if you're going to biopsy a place to take some muscle, well, you want to take it kind of a big area. No better place than latissimus dorsi. I hope that's all you ever needed to know as far as working the lats. But if you have any questions about that, don't think twice about contacting me. You can contact me at garrett@personaledgefitness.com. You're welcome to give us a call here at the facility at 251-341-0927. Or you can reach out to us on Facebook and on our website. And you've got a contact link there, both my email address and info@personaledgefitness.com. If you have any questions about this particular muscle, anything else we discuss on our Personal Edge Fitness podcast, anything we can do to help you live your level of wellness.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.